And we have to address that. And the British government is indeed committed over the next 4 years to reducing the fiscal deficit to zero by the year 2015. We've also been reforming the way in which macroeconomic demand management is carried out through the central authorities. The role of the Bank of England is being evolved, giving clearer authority over the flow of credit through the economy, through the business cycle. This sounds like a rather technical matter, but it is in fact extremely important to the sustainable, stable growth of the economy that the Bank of England has the clear mandate to control the flow of credit through the economy and avoid the development of bubbles in particular sectors. And we have created a new policy committee structure within the Bank of England to ensure that it's able to do that. We also believe that since growth must be led by businesses engaged internationally, that we need to ensure that we have a business-friendly tax regime. And so we've been introducing lower rates of corporation tax, enhanced credits for research and development, better protection of revenues from intellectual property, and so forth. All of this designed to ensure that business can operate in Britain in the international markets on a competitive basis so far as tax is concerned. We've also been increasing the investment in skills and innovation in the economy. In Britain, over the last 20 or 30 years or so, not enough investment had been made, particularly in apprenticeships, particularly in advanced manufacturing, and we are now substantially increasing the investment in that direction. There are other things that we need to reform in Britain. I don't need to bore you with the details. It is sufficient, I hope, to say, to convey the impression that we're a government that is very determined to reorient the British economy in a way that is more balanced and more competitive internationally. And I think that we are making good progress, although the times are difficult. For Poland, as for Britain, the difficulties in the Eurozone are a serious matter. In your case, well over half exports go to the Eurozone. In our case, very nearly half of our exports go to the Eurozone. So the imperative of the resolution of the financial crisis in the Eurozone is one which is very important to both Poland and Britain. It is clear that resolving the financial crisis is not just about resolving financial imbalances. In order to have a sustainable step forward in the way in which the Eurozone operates, it is clearly necessary to reform the real economies and not just address the financial imbalances. And that is the challenge facing the new governments of Greece and Italy at the moment, and indeed so many of the Eurozone governments. It is, of course, a challenge facing many of us. Poland, which is a rapidly emerging economy in Europe, has done extremely well during the recession, or at least much better than other European countries. It is indeed the only European country that never went into negative growth at any point through the crisis, which is a remarkable testimony to the resilience and dynamism of this economy. But there's a lot to invest in. As you don't need me to tell you, the infrastructure in Poland needs significant investment, as does infrastructure in Britain. And one of the challenges longer term, which will face Poland and Britain, and indeed many economies of the world, is the big challenge for us all over the next 20, 30 years, is going to be investment in infrastructure. Indeed, the big challenge for the financial markets over that period of time, once we've got through the near-term instability in the Eurozone, will be the mobilisation of enough capital to meet the aspirations not only of emerging markets, but indeed of the more developed markets too, for infrastructure investment. Poland has major ambitions for infrastructure, and it's easy to see why. Britain has significant ambitions for infrastructure. Just to give you a couple of examples, many Poles, of course, know Britain very well. There are somewhere between 600,000 and 1 million Poles living in Britain, and so you know Britain as a country very well. Well, Britain's kindest friends wouldn't say that it has the best possible infrastructure, and a lot of investment needs to go, particularly into transport, but also into energy generation. We face the challenge, as do all European countries over the next 20 to 30 years, of investing in the energy supply in a way that is sustainable. I mean both economically sustainable and sustainable in terms of the environment and the climate change impact. And we have to find the finance for that. In Britain in particular, we are emphasising a great deal renewable resources for energy, renewable energy resources. We will be investing some £100 billion, that's let's say 150, 120 billion euros, in offshore wind power over the next 10 years. This is a significant investment in a new technology designed to supply something like 20% of Britain's total energy supply for the next generation. We will also be investing large amounts in nuclear power stations as we replace the older power stations that are coming to the end of their natural life. One way or another, we have major investment needs. So does Poland, so do many countries in the world. And over the next generation, the competition for capital and the challenge in the financial markets to mobilise capital in a way that is productively invested in infrastructure is going to be the big challenge for the financial markets of the world. In the shorter term, of course, we're more preoccupied with ensuring that there is an orderly resolution of the difficulties in the Eurozone and a resumption of strong world growth. That is, as I say, clearly in the interests of Britain to see that resolution take place. It's clearly in the interests of Poland to see that resolution take place. There's a great deal of work to be done by the new governments of Greece, Italy, many challenges elsewhere in the Eurozone. And one of the things that I think it's important that we all recognise in the Eurozone, in Europe generally, is that imbalances can take different forms. I've already mentioned the fact that China is an imbalanced growth model because it's depended too much on exports and investment and not enough on consumption. Well, there is one large economy in Europe in which the same thing is true. And I actually believe that we need to ensure that the rebalancing takes place in all of the significant economies so that we all play our part in finding a more sustainable and more balanced, more durable mode of growth for the world at large, for individual regions like the Eurozone and like Europe as a whole, and indeed for some other countries around the world too. I want to end finally on a note of optimism. There are some very significant difficulties in the near term, without question. We need to find a way to resolve those difficulties. But over the longer term, I do believe that an increasingly connected world with an increasingly strong digital component to the way we do our business has immense opportunities. There is one particular challenge that we all have globally to rise to, and that is to ensure, for the benefit of future generations, that our economies move towards a greener growth path. We have to ensure that we reduce the carbon emissions that hitherto been characteristic of economic development. We have to ensure that the way in which we do that leads to a much more efficient use of energy and therefore to a reduced impact on the environment and on climate change. And that's a challenge for all of us. I've already talked a little bit about the British government's aspirations for renewable energy. It is very clearly a challenge for all of us, whether we're in this part of Europe, whether it's the Chinese and the Indians, that our growth models become more sustainable. And the opportunity for investment there is enormous, as I've already implied, and I think very exciting, because what we will find under the pressure of demand for more environmentally compatible technology, a lot of inventiveness coming to the fore in business worldwide. This is a very considerable opportunity, and as we globalise and become increasingly connected, I'm confident that the world's economy will rise to this challenge. And this means, I believe, that growth actually will be quite robust for the next generation. We have some short-term difficulties to get through, without question, but the longer-term prospects for world growth and for the raising of living standards throughout many of the poorer countries of the world are very great indeed. Thank you very much.